Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I'm just going to be doing a quick view of a 23 Tentacle that I managed to time. The reason I wanted to kind of upload this video was because it felt like such a clean run. This was during a Sanguine week and we still managed to time the key. So I wanted to kind of just get this up on YouTube, show you guys my thought process going through this dungeon and what we're kind of trying to achieve as a group. So hopefully you enjoy this video and hopefully you can learn a little bit from it. So let's get into it, let's check it out. Like I say, this is going to be a bit of a rough video, so, there might be some pauses and whatnot, but hopefully you can stick with me and enjoy it. We do have a route going through this dungeon where we try and keep as... you'll notice that we skip a lot of the inside trash, and we kind of just keep a lot of the trash for the cannons later on, or at the very beginning of the dungeon on the outside. We really want to avoid doing too much trash on the inside because of Sanguine, obviously. So you'll notice our route reflects that. We even end up doing all these crocs here in the middle of this lower sewer level. So yeah, we'll jump into it and I'll take you through it. Just when we get to... I'm obviously playing MOC, I'm playing Predator, I'm playing the usual stuff, Tiger Dash, of course. I do go for Twilight Devil in this dungeon. Obviously, it's Fortified, it's a 23 key, these mobs are going to be alive a long time. Now you can see that we do this ridiculously large pull here with this tank. The tank is obviously a very, very skilled player and able to pull this off. We have the rogue here with the tricks of the trade to make sure that we've, got give the tank time to aggro. You'll see I even hold off on attacking for a little bit. We are also having to deal with this Quaking, so we want to make sure that we're spreading. Now, the way that new Quaking and current Quaking works is that as long as nobody else is in your circle, you won't do any, Quaking won't do any damage, right? It's only when somebody else is in somebody else's circle and you're overlapping with each other that there'll actually be any damage output. Of course, it will still silence your casting if you do manage to be casting during it, but that's not a problem because we're melee, so who cares? You'll notice our tank is doing this kite through the ocean here, and the reason that tanks will do this, especially at this level, is that the Sanguine pools kind of sink to the bottom of the ocean, but they don't heal the mobs on top. So it means that we can avoid any of these crabs, doing their cast and stunning any of us, the squeeze, and then standing in Sanguine the whole time and just healing up to full. So it's a really, really good strat. I'm not actually sure how the tank is managing to keep a distance on these mobs so well. I think it comes down to one of the talent choices you have as a warrior, where you're thunderclap roots mobs or something like that. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm sure, that's something to check out. I know as well you can also get a toy, the divers... like a diving toy. I'll find out what it is and I'll put it in the description below for anybody that wants to check that out. But that's what we're trying to achieve here with this first pull, and you can see that we managed to clear the whole of the beach in one pull, which is insane and very, very time efficient. Like I was saying, we want to do a lot of this trash outside of the main prison section of Tentacle because we want to avoid Sanguine everywhere. But we quickly get through this, and then I think we look to go for the boss next. Now, being a Feral Druid, I've got all my cooldowns available. I make sure that I've got my Blood of the Enemy ready to go. I've got my Berserk, of course, because Berserk is pretty useless on any large pulls like that. It's not really going to do anything. We're not trying to pool energy for big Ferocious Bites or anything like that. We're just Primal Wrathing. We're getting our energy restoration with Soul of the Forest and whatnot. So, all is well, really. We've got our cooldowns ready to go. It's funny because I'll be on Discord with people and they'll be like, okay, does everyone have cooldowns? Can we go boss? And every time I'm just like, yep, sure, yep, doesn't matter, go ahead. Every single time. Because, Berserk is pretty shit, so we always have it available. Next with this boss here, I like to do this boss in kind of... You want to be very stacked up nice and tight, right? That's the whole point of this boss, is stacking up very, very closely, getting these parasite spawns to be... or these critter spawns to be very nice and condensed. It means the tank can pick them up nice and easy. The rogue can be can tricks of the trade and everything like that, and all as well. You'll notice that I get the upheaval on me, and what I try and do is I use my survival instincts, and I just kind of get that taken care of. Big defensive, go into bear form, no chance of me dying there, no problem at all. I do manage to get hit from the thing from beyond, just from a misplay there. I should have had my Entangle quicker. I think I did try and do it, but I just made a mistake, made an error. which happens. I do actually, this boss is so, like, a lot of people say, why do you play with so much corruption? And I'm like, dude, the corruption is fine, honestly, it's no big deal. As long as you don't get 2 I-beams spawning you in a row, it's fine. But this boss has actually got a lot of, like, AoE damage going out, so I end up just getting so corruption boned. You'll see that I even just, like, remove myself from the fight for a moment there during that upheaval, just because I'm getting boned here on this fight. It's kind of unlucky. I've got my potion, but I know I'm safe. I'm trying to save my potion for as long as possible, waiting for the hardest, like, hitting you know, issues that we might have. You know, if I get double corruption boned, or if I get some of these parasite stacks here from these drones, and get the debuff on me. But I'm standing away from them. The way that debuff works is if you're standing in front of them, and I think if you're, like, the closest target, I don't know if it's closest target or just if you're standing in front of them, you will get, like, bitten by them, and it does a lot of damage, that debuff. You can see the rogue has it on him right now as I speak, and now the demon, I mean, we all have it on us now. So just be aware of that in your positioning. Obviously, you want to make sure that that's not hitting you regularly. I'll skip through this a little bit, though, because, I mean, we just kind of, you know, it's the same thing over and over again. We kind of just do more of the same. Then we look to grab these parasites here. Good little bit of percent. Again, keeping all the percent outside of the dungeon. These work exactly the same. You want to make sure that you're not standing in, like, in front of them or closest to them and whatnot. I do manage to actually deal with that thing from beyond this time, which is really, really nice. A lot of people get scared for me dealing with things from beyond, but honestly, it's like I feel like a cowboy. I'm like, pew, draw. You know, you just got to be the quickest gunslinger, and you'll do it. It's kind of scary though when you get high corruption, because those things actually sprint at you. Like, they have Tiger Dash on, and they just run at you. Now we look to kill this boss, or this mini boss, just outside. I initially think that we're going through, so I start clearing stuff and then go, oh, no, we're going to just kill out here, which is a really safe call. We know that we're going to be killing a lot of the, like, crocs and all that kind of stuff inside anyway, so there's no real need to, like, pull this through to anywhere. We're not skipping anything. A lot of groups will look to use this mob to skip on later through the dungeon, so you can pull it up the stairs and avoid all the crocs and the enforcer and, like, all the way up through the dungeon as far as you really want to go. But we're not opting to do that. Again, this route is probably one of the most solid routes for this affix week. I'll take us doing a good job here just to kind of, well, you know, decent job of trying to get away from this siege breaker. Try not to let him smack him too hard. There are some cool snap, like, mechanics. Not really snap mechanics, but kind of like, I don't know what you'd call them, but you kind of, like, trick the AI. And basically, you can position yourself so, like, he could maybe, like, jump up on this rock here, for example, and then the mob will probably, like, try and walk up these stairs here, and then you can, like, you basically, like, teeter back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and it causes the mob to, like, keep yo-yoing. I guess we'll call it a yo-yo. And it keeps yo-yoing back and forth. I don't know if you can actually do it there on that rock, but, like, that would be an example. I know a lot of people do it in, like, King's Rest, first boss room. You've got that, obviously, that big, like, platform in the middle of the room, and people kind of, like, yo-yo back and forth, and it causes the mob to keep turning and going every which way. So as long as you've got aggro on the mob as a tank, then you're totally fine to do that, and I think it's quite smart to do that. Saves your healer, saves your cooldown, like, you know, healers cooldowns, tank cooldowns, all that kind of stuff. Ready for this pack here. Now, again, these crocs you want to be careful of, because they're going to put a debuff on the tank, which I believe reduces maximum health, and can be quite nasty, especially if you get if you get all these crocs all bite him at the same time, then that's going to be really nasty. So you want to be very, very careful as a tank. Like, what he wants to do is he wants to get aggro immediately and then just leave. But as soon as he leaves, he cannot come back, because what's going to happen is the internal cooldown on all of these mobs' abilities, which is to bite the tank, they're all going to be up at the same time. So what's going to happen is they're all going to bite him at the same time. So he needs to, like, literally get aggro and then get out of there. And again, I think he's making use of this, sorry for this Twitch stuff going on. The tank will, the tank is using, I think, this, like, Thunderclap talent or whatever it may be, Azurite trait or whatever it is, that kind of, like, semi-roots the mobs for, like, a half a second, I guess. And it's causing the mobs to be very slow and all that good stuff, which is really nice. So we managed to deal with that quite nicely. Not too bad a pull. You got to make sure, obviously, as DPS, that you're also interrupting that enforcer, making sure that cast isn't going through, because it's going to silence your healer and kind of have or give him a bad time. So you want to make sure that you're helping out there where you can. We end up then pulling all the way over to this corner. We kill these mobs down. We make sure that so at the top of the stairs there, you can rogue sap, and, like, you can sap blind and then vanish, or you could, if you have a Demon Hunter, you can sap and cage. For some reason, Blizzard has made it so that only Rogue and Demon Hunter, their like ink caps are like the only ones in the game that don't put people in combat, which is interesting. I've spoken about this a lot on stream. It's kind of interesting that they have not only the best, not only really good things, but also the best version of that really good thing, which is interesting. Now I'm making sure of Typhoon. I'm making good use of Typhoon here to kind of just push these mobs out right when they're close to dying here. We really don't want mobs to get stuck on top of each other and cause this Sanguine just to max health heal them. So being very careful, like, not to kill mobs when it's going to be an awkward position. Obviously, as a rogue, you need to make sure that you're not betweening the eyes when these mobs are about to, like, or like when one of the mobs is about to die, because you might drop it in Sanguine. So a lot of little things going on in pulls like this. We're trying to make as good use as possible. Very difficult as a tank here because you're trying to kite, but at the same time you need to condense the space and you end up running out of space eventually. So it's kind of very awkward. Now I think I Typhoon the mob here, but oh no I don't. Okay, that's fine. I thought when I did this that I actually Typhooned the mob and that I was like, then the tank switches place, but doesn't end up happening, and that's okay. Now, what we're going to look to do next is we're going to have the Rogue open all the cages. What he wants to do is open them whilst you're all on this, on this plane, because if he opens them when you guys go into the portal, you won't get the buff, the benefits of each of these cages. You could get, like, stand buff, AP, intellect, like, all the class buffs and stuff from these cages by the Rogue opening them. But then we go into this pillar once the Rogue has done his job. Any second now, and then what we'll do is we'll immediately pull this is the blob with all of the Mind Flay tentacles. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump in and we're going to immediately go back to where we were just killing all that trash in the corner of the room. And what that's going to do is it's going to cause all of the tentacles to group up so that we can kill them all very quickly and efficiently. Especially if you have something like a Fire Mage, is very, very nice because it means that they don't have to, like, that combustion is a lot more useful and impactful because all the mobs are grouped rather than the tank having to, like, kite the blob to each one of these mobs to allow for the Fire Mage. I didn't realize what we were doing at first, I believe, so I start killing some of these. Or maybe I'm just trying to be, I don't know, I'm trying to think of my thought process when we were doing this key when it was live. And I'm just throwing in a War Stomp here. I'm in a delicate position, but I pop a defensive, I pop a health pot, and I just get the hell out of there, right? By jumping into cat form, or like out and back into cat form, I, remove any of those slows on me. And you do use that War Stomp to reset any of those. So I managed to luckily stay alive there. It was very close. I could have died, but luckily I managed to play it out nicely. So all those tentacles are dead, and then we can just focus on this blob now. So in this key, I mean, I'm trying to, things like Berserk here, like I want to be using it now because we're on this single target mob. I want to be making use of, sorry, I know this quality is a little bit shitty, but it's just, I think my recorder just dies here, must have been. Yeah, making use of like Berserk and stuff here on these single target mobs when, like, I know I'm not going to get another use now for a long time before the boss, and I know that I'm not going to need it on any of these trash packs because we are going to go quite big. You can tell very quickly in a dungeon how your tank is going to be pulling the dungeon based on those first few initial pulls. Now, when I see that tank at the beginning of the dungeon pull the whole of the outside room, I suddenly start juggling my cooldowns in my head and start thinking, right, well, I know we're going to be pulling as big as we can. These are probably the sections of the dungeon where we're going to be pulling big. These are going to be where we're pulling smaller and whatnot. You might start a dungeon and you might have a tank, say like in a King's Rest, for example, where a tank will do in the first boss room, they'll do each pack separately. You've got those 4 packs in that first room of King's Rest, and when you see the tank pull one group at a time, that it's going to be a slow run, right? So you can stop popping all kinds of cooldowns whenever you want, kind of willy-nilly. But in this instance, we want to be conserving our cooldowns and using them wisely. Especially with no Fire Mage in the group. I mean, I play an off-meta spec, but I love the meta. Like, of course, I love having a Rogue or a Demon Hunter, a Fire Mage in my group. Like, I love having that stuff, obviously. It's just that, when you already have, like, the Demon Hunter and the Fire Mage, then, I don't know, bring the Feral. You know what I mean? So, yeah, especially not having a Fire Mage here just to instantly blow packs up. It means that we need solid, consistent damage from each of our DPS here. So yeah, just something to keep in mind. We're trying to make good use of space here. So the tank pulls, like, he's basically pulling a group and then pulling it as far back as he can, and then pulling the next group and then shuffling it in line just before that one. And that's what we're trying to do with our space efficiency here. It can be a little bit difficult in Total Gore. I mean, this dungeon is so awfully designed that, like, mobs run away when they're low health and stuff, and it's just like, it's ridiculous. It's crazy. I don't know who designed this dungeon, but they must have been having a rough day at the office. They must have had a rough day looking at forum posts or something like that, and decided to take it out on the community with this one, for sure. And that goes for Siege of Bralis as well. Actually, I hate that dungeon. I mean, even using Typhoon and and Twilight Devastation, you have to be very careful in this dungeon. Things like Ring of Peace, anything like that, can cause the mobs to like drop through the floor if they hit certain, I don't know, like sections of the dungeon and stuff. And I don't know, it must be to do with, I don't know anything about game design, but how it's all kind of pieced together. And there were different like borders that they input in the game and whatnot. But when you Typhoon and Ring of Peace and stuff, mobs can drop below on the ground on the floor below you, and then they don't know how to get back upstairs again. I don't know. Nobody taught them how to climb stairs or something. Did people teach each other how to climb stairs? I don't know. But the mobs then don't get back up to you. So then they bug out, and then you're combat locked forever, and it kind of just ruins the whole dungeon, and it makes it very miserable to try and do, because you can't enter any of the obelisks, and you have to full wipe and all that kind of stuff. So we're being very careful here. So the things you want to look out for are these casters. These, what are they called? These sea speaker thingies, whatever they're called. They I have no idea what they're called. But they do these casts. They do a bolt, which will hit the tank very hard, so you can't let too many of those be going through. Like, you definitely don't want, like, 2 going through at a time. You want to make sure that you're trying to interrupt those. But you also don't want to neglect the shield cast that they put on all of the surrounding mobs around them. It can be Blood of Racial Purged. It can be, like, Shaman Purge. All kinds of purges that you can do. I'm sure Mage can probably steal it. Demon Hunter can purge it as well. But you can definitely Blood Off Racial it. I know that's for sure. And, yeah, you just want to make sure that you're looking for that cast as well, because if that goes through, it just increases the amount of time that you're spending killing these mobs. So, yeah, these watery domes right there, that's what you want to be looking out for. So, stuns, incaps, anything you can to prevent that is key. But luckily, we don't have any bolstering or anything like that, so we can, we can be killing it in the order. I mean, I'm coming from a bolstering week right now, so in my head, I'm like, oh, God, we need to be managing the health of all these mobs, but it's all A-okay. Now, I can't remember if we did the cages with these pulls or not. I believe we did. I believe we did this side right here that we're on now. I believe we did these cages with the very first pull we did in the room. And then I believe that we did the second lot of cages just then with this pull. Yeah, we must have. So all the cages dealt with. The boss isn't going to really have any Sanguine to like run through. That should all be disappearing now as we're going through. I think there might be a couple of the cages left. Okay, yeah, so no, we haven't done the cages yet. My apologies. So we look to do these now, which, I mean, you kind of have to do them. You really don't want, I mean, I'm just trying to think, actually, if these even will end up dropping Sanguine. I'm not sure, actually. We'll have to wait and see. I can't remember off the top of my head. Part of me is thinking that they actually don't drop Sanguine at all, so we can just kill them with the boss, in which case that's fine. So we should be fine here. What's important during this boss is just to establish an interrupt rotation with your group. So you need to figure out, right, who's interrupting the boss. You need 2 people on that for the fear. And then you need 2 people interrupting Bobby. Bobby's going to do a fear, and he's also going to... he's going to do a fear, and then you need to watch out for the boss as well, who's going to do the initial cast he's doing when he's round to the other side of the room, when he's unlocked all the cages. You need to just interrupt that initial cast. So that's why you need 2 people on Jess. And yeah, Bobby, you just need to look out for the interrupt. And the vicious mauling, of course. That's what I was thinking of that I couldn't quite grasp in my head. I've vowed to myself to never do another Total Gore. I've got a 23 Total Gore in time now. Until I have a 24 key of every single other dungeon in the game, I don't plan on doing another Total Gore. You know what? Maybe even a 25 of every other key. And when that day comes, I mean, I don't think Total Gore will be much of my worries at all. So, until that happens, I'm never doing a Total Gore again, because I hate this dungeon. So, I'm very, very pleased with having completed this dungeon. I think that's partly why I wanted to get this video up. Also, just showing off this, like, just showing off that even on a 23 Fortified on Sanguine, you can still do this key and you can still time it. It just comes down to having a really solid tank and healer combo that know how to do these pulls, know how to do that placement. Like this tank, if you just look at his placement and how he's pulling mobs around the room and positioning and doing like calculated which pack they're pulling when, is really, really key. It means that we're causing as few issues as possible with this Sanguine. And it's just really, really good to see. I think we all literally got carried by the tank on this run. I mean, even like you can see our DPS as well, 150k across the board. Like look at this damage over here, across the board, 150k. Like this is why when people say to me, they'll come into my stream, whatever, and they'll say, hey, so I'm doing, I'm 470 item level, and I'm doing a 17 key, and I did 65k overall. Is that good? And it's like, well, I don't know. It depends, dude. Like, what dungeon are you doing? What group comp do you have? What affix week is it? What kind of pulls are you doing? When you have a tank pulling this big, I mean, the damage just comes naturally, of course. So yeah, it's really good to see. Now we're gonna do something very interesting here. You'll notice that, I mean, I didn't battle res the healer there because we didn't need it. I don't want to waste battle reses if we literally just like do not need it. And I can't remember, but I think we end up needing those battle reses at the end of the dungeon anyway. So it ends up paying off. What we do here is we do this really interesting strat where the rogue is going to run through the dungeon here. So we're all going to jump in the portal, right? And the rogue is just going to continue on through the dungeon outside of the portal. And what they're going to do is they're going to run up these stairs here. They're probably going to aggro those mobs and whatever, that's fine. They're going to aggro these mobs, but they run past them all. And they get up to the obelisk and then they vanish, right? And what that means is then they can activate the obelisk with all of us inside. And it means that we can skip all of that trash. It's a really solid technique. Even if the rogue dies, right? Even if the rogue messes up and they mess up on their vanish and they die and whatever, and they don't pop their parry and their riposte and stuff like that, and they have trouble with it, the healer can stand here, like over here next to this obelisk, and res the rogue, even though the rogue is outside of the realm. The rogue will then resurrect outside of this realm. End up dying here, it's no big deal, I'm going to keep explaining. The rogue will res outside of the realm, but then they can just go and stealth and activate the pillar anyway. So, all is well. So even if your rogue makes a mistake, you've got ways to handle this, and you can pretty much always do this skip. You can pretty much always do this. And it's a very, very nice skip, very time efficient, I would say, because you can kill everything else with cannons. We're at 65%, and we're just going to look to kill everything else with cannons and get the rest of our percent here, which is really, really solid. So we end up killing this mob. Now, the way that you do this next, deal with the cannons, obviously you want the rogue to be dealing with the cannons. Now, I've managed to do, I think it was a 21 or a 22 total goal in time without having a rogue in the group, without even having a hunter in the group. So, it is doable without a rogue, but I very much would encourage you, if you do have a rogue, to let the rogue do it. Obviously, they want to misdirect the tank, and then they want to do the initial shot on the faraway mob, wait for them to group up, and then start hitting them there. We want to make use of things like, if you have a Resto Druid or whatever, you can use things like Ursul's Vortex and Typhoons here. I've got Typhoon, but I'm holding it, I'm waiting. I don't want to cause, I don't want to mess this up, so I'm holding it until it is asked for, until it's requested. And you can see here, there's no need to be using it. Everything's grouped up nicely. Just repositioning here because of our Quaking. But yeah, all in all, pretty solid way of dealing with this. We want to be very careful now because of Sanguine, so this is probably where I'll look to Typhoon. No, don't even need to look to Typhoon because the rogue handled that very, very well. And things like the Warrior Shockwave and all that kind of stuff. Demon Hunter obviously has Chaos Nova. Like, just having all those things is very helpful. You'll notice that people are pulling away the barrels. So I believe it may have been the healer that pulled away the barrel as soon as we came out of the realm. The reason you want to do that is because if either one of the mobs manages to do their, I can't remember what it's called, but one of the mobs does like a flamethrower ability. I'm blanking on that one right now, but if that hits the barrel, it will cause it to start exploding. Also, if the cannon hits the barrel, it'll start to explode. So you want to be aware of that. You want to be careful of that. We then next look to just like jump into this obelisk. I think this is more so because we want to get our cooldowns up and available. Though I think we should have had them available because we didn't really do anything. I'm trying to think of why we wanted to do this obelisk first. and then go for the next pack of mobs. But that's what we ended up doing. Trying to think off the top of my head if there's anything like really like a big tactical reason. It could have been to do with using our cooldowns on this so that we have them up for boss after we do deal with these mobs. But I'm not too sure. I did this key about a week and a half ago or so it's not fresh in my mind or as fresh as I'd like it to be. I know in future, whenever I have a good key like this, I might just get the recording up straight immediately, ready to go, so that I've got it fresh in my mind. But if you guys like seeing these kinds of videos, if you like looking through these and kind of looking at my thought process on it, please let me know in the comments. I want to know if you guys like this kind of stuff, or if there's something else that I could discuss, anything that I missed that you want me to go through, if there's a style that you want me doing these in. I will likely do these in more of a shoutcasting format from now on, so I will most likely be looking just to kind of, do kind of like an MDI, KSM style shoutcasting, because that's something of interest to me, and it's something that I want to kind of try and perfect a little bit. So I'll definitely look to do that. I still want to be making sure that I'm explaining things to everyone and kind of saying why we're doing what we're doing and that kind of thing. And also, obviously, discussing a little bit of feral stuff as and when I think it's important. But right now, it's all well and good. So we're going with these barrels, going on this third boss. And what I want to mainly discuss is the barrels here. So we're saving Bloodlust for the final boss, because this boss is a bit of a cakewalk. You don't really need to stress too much on it. What we're doing here with these barrels, right, is first of all, when you first enter the boss, don't touch any of the barrels. From what I understand, if you touch any of those barrels, it'll cause more to be summoned into the boss room. So if you can not touch any of those, then you're in really, really good shape, and you'll kind of make the fight easier on yourselves. I know historically that's what people used to do, but we've stopped doing that. But what you want to do with these barrels is, if they're going to be exploding, you just want to move them out. Now, a lot of people what you used to do is you used to grab them and you used to like move them into the corners, right? And you'd all stack them in one corner and you just get them out of the middle of the room and all that kind of stuff. Nowadays, nobody does that. What you do is you're very minimal with your movements, all right? Very, very minimal with your movements of these barrels. Literally, you only use them if you're going to be in danger of them exploding directly from the boss and hitting you. If they're in the back of the room and the sides and whatever, it doesn't matter. As long as the corner you're in is safe, that's all that matters. So you'll notice that we'll pick them up, hold them for a second, move them just to the side, put them back down again. You notice as well, Killy actually was in my comment in stream saying about how I'm a madman for playing 77 corruption. But you can see so far, I mean, it's not been an issue, right? Dealing with high levels of corruption, even in something like a Total Gore with limited space. I mean, I'm playing with Typhoon. I would ideally want to be playing with Mass Entangle to help me deal with higher corruption. But obviously, because it's Sanguine week, like, I want to be making sure that I'm helping the group as much as I can here. So I'm playing with Typhoon. Even though Typhoon is kind of buggy in this dungeon. So even if you don't play Typhoon, I can kind of understand, because it does bug in this dungeon and it can cause more problems than it solves. But it's kind of like a list of, like, what is the most important thing, and it's kind of like weighing up what would be, what would be worse. Mobs, every pack full health healing because they're constantly stuck in Sanguine, or the off chance that maybe one of the mobs might get stuck in the floor. I say, even if that happens, the time that you save elsewhere in the dungeon is definitely worth taking Typhoon here. But dealing with the high levels of corruption, all I have to do is just make sure, like, there's nothing that's going to be hitting me in this dungeon, really. Apart from the first boss and, well, the last boss, there's no real, like, outgoing AoE damage. There's nothing that's really going to be constantly hitting me. I can avoid everything. Everything's going to be targeting the tank. It's not something like Junkyard where you've got, like, the trash tossers and stuff like that are constantly attacking people at random, and the bolt busters and stuff that'll be shooting people at random. So it's not like you have a bunch of these mobs that are just going to be randomly attacking people, and there's not really like any major AoE effects going on. If they do, they kill you, so you die directly from the hit, not from the thing from beyond that spawns. But basically, the way that I'll deal with it is just using my survival instincts and just, if I get one I-beam around me summon, doesn't matter. The healer can passively heal that very nicely, and so can I with use of my own regrowths whilst I'm pooling energy anyway. So, like, there's no problem there. Most of the time, you can actually end up moving out of them, even with 77 corruption. And then what I do, if I get a second I-beam spawn, I will either use the survival instincts or I'll use my cloak. Depending, it's weighed up at the time depending on what position I'm in. So, like on the boss, for example, I try and save my cloaks from when things from beyond spawn, because then I'm getting you know, likely an I-beam into a thing from beyond, into another I-beam, and the hit from the thing from beyond. So I try and save my cloaks for those, and then I just use my survival instincts for sticky situations. And that's like mainly how you deal with it. The biggest thing is the corruption slow, because that'll just get you. That'll get you before you even realize it's on you, and you get to move, and then suddenly it's, you know, it just zaps you. So sometimes it might be good to get a weak aura or something for that kind of thing. Now we've got 6 minutes on this boss. We've got plenty, in fact more than 6 minutes. So we have absolutely plenty of time, right? You can see our damage overall. This is the damage with the cannonball removed. So we're all pulling this like 120k in this dungeon just because we're doing such big trash pulls every time and really consolidating these pulls nicely, making efficient use of our cooldowns and all that kind of stuff. So very solid group overall. Would definitely play with any of these guys again for sure. Especially this tank was phenomenal, incredible. So really good to see. Now, as a Feral Druid, what I'll do on this boss is I will make sure that I stand up on this platform, because you can attack from so far away with Balance Affinity. This is another one of those reasons why people say, hey, how can we play with Balance Affinity and not Guardian Affinity? And I say, well, Guardian Affinity will reduce your damage taken by 6%. Balance Affinity will reduce your damage taken by 100%. It just removes you from so many mechanics in the game. Now, obviously, if I get, like, you know, if I get this, explosive burst on me, then I'm still going to be taking damage, right? But I can move out from the rest of the group. It means that we're being way more space efficient, and it just makes the whole fight a lot smoother to be able to do so. The key to this fight as well is just standing still as much as you possibly can. We've got the Demon Hunter here, who whenever those like dead shots are coming through, or those Deadeye shots, the Demon Hunter is blade dancing them. And basically all you have to do, it's super easy. All you have to do is just position yourself in front of the boss, and then just right before the cast is going to come through, you just blade dance. Like right when it's got a bee's dick left on the cast, just blade dance. Nice and simple. And it just removes that mechanic from the fight. It's insane, actually. But yeah, it's insane. I mean, apparently, I don't know. Apparently, Demon Hunter's defensives are not too powerful. That being able to blade dance everything and also being able to use darkness and also blur on a 1 minute cooldown is not too strong. However, survival instincts, way too strong, needs to get nerfed. Definitely. So, good to see that coming in Shadowlands. I'm excited for that nerf, actually. I'm happy Blizzard managed to finally fix Feral Druid for being too strong defensively. And that's basically the run, guys. I hope you enjoyed that overview. I mean, you might be able to stay and see what loot I get, but I hope you enjoyed that one. Get in the comment section if you have any, you know, any advice for how you wanted to see these being done differently, or, you know, saying if you like things or didn't like them. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something from it. If there's anything in the comments that maybe you feel like could have been explained better, or that you missed an explanation on, let me know. Comment down below, and I appreciate it, and see you for the next one.